Happy Fun Friday, my friends. We're calling you from the Wizards of the Coast Free Friday. I know Wizards has dropped a lot of bombs in the last 48 hours. We're going to ignore them until Wednesday. So, congratulations to the Basic Expert. Congratulations to the Basic Expert. He created a brand new tabletop role-playing game controversy meme with his Mythic Underworld post and all the reactions his Mythic Underworld post is getting. I made one that I guess was misunderstood. Tons of other people are responding to the Basic Expert's Mystic Underworld post, and it just seems like that's the new thing on the wheel. You know, we could add that right next to orcs are racist, player death, and dice fudging, I guess, in the Mythic Underworld. And how either people agree with his idea of the Mythic Underworld or they don't, and how violently people have responded to the post. You know, we can't just say anymore, I disagree with you. We have to say, you know, screw you, you need to die, I'm going to come kill your kids because I disagree with you. Now, the problem with Basic Expert's Mystic Underworld argument is, of course, the same basis of all the arguments on the wheel. They all break down to the same basic idea, the flawed idea. And the flawed idea, which is very prevalent amongst a lot of people in the community, is you are playing my game wrong. You are playing my game wrong. They have decided that the way they run the underworld is the right way. And if you deviate, you are wrong. You're not playing their game the right way. And all the arguments we talk about, 99% of them boil down to that core philosophy, that core ideal. People who disagreed with the Basic Expert on the concept of the mystical underworld disagreed with him because he was playing their game wrong. Now, this is the point where I would argue it's make-believe. You can't play it wrong, but apparently that's a facile statement that needs to die a slow death. Now, I think possibly the problem in the concept of the Mythic Underworld is Mythic Underworld versus Dungeon. And are they the same? Are they different? Because, I mean, how is the Mythic Underworld any different than the Gothic fairy tale forest? You know, and the concept of the Gothic fairy tale forest runs through literature, fiction, folklore, storytelling, all the way back as far as we have been the written world, if not farther, all the way back to the Greek plays, all the way back to the earliest forms of storytelling, where our Cro-Magnon Neanderthal ancestors looked out on the stars and needed explanations for everything they were seeing and experiencing. And since the ideas of science, you know, are still a relatively new idea, we would grasp on to concepts of the supernatural, of the mythic, of the story, and the power of the story, because stories have power. The idea of the Mythic Underworld is no different than the idea of the mythic forest, the fairy tale forest. The idea that once you get once you leave home, you're not safe, and there are things that don't have a logical explanation. But we compare that to the idea of the dungeon, which is unique to Dungeons and Dragons, and how the idea of the dungeon has grown. And then we get this, was he talking about the idea of a dungeon, or was he talking about the more esoteric idea of the mythical underworld, the mythical forest, the mythical unknown. The idea that not everything has to have an explanation. And in fact, some things are better for not having an explanation. They're just things out there that don't make sense. And because this is a fantasy story, they don't have to. Now, this is a point where I would remind you again that dungeons aren't real. And while the earth does have an underground, the most frightening things we're going to encounter in the real life underground of our world are insects, rats, birds, bats, hibernating mammals, homeless people, and getting stuck and getting lost. You know, that's the biggest threat when you go spelunking, getting stuck and getting lost. Not, I'm going to get eaten by a monster. No, you're going to get stuck. That's really what you should be worried about. But even today, we still have unknowns. And when we can't fit that square peg into the square hole, we hypothesize. And sometimes those hypothesizes get a little, what we would say, ridiculous, a little fanciful. You know, we don't know what's in the Mariner's Trench. We're still barely scraping the surface of what's down there in the deep dark of the ocean. There's lakes that we don't know what the bottoms of, you know. Lake Erie, nobody knows what the bottoms of Lake Erie. They're still trolling it with cameras today to try and figure out what's down there, much less the ocean. And then you get into space. I mean, not even think about space. Let's just think about there's still chunks of territory in the planet that we still know very little about. The Amazon, you know, parts of Africa, parts of the mountains, huge chunks of the deserts where we still know very little to nothing about. There are still undiscovered animals and undiscovered tribes in the Amazon. So the mythical underworld exists. Not everything has to have an explanation. The argument was, I think, started over where do the goblins poop? And if it was a dungeon with a functioning, sensical ecosystem, then you might want to put a couple seconds into answering questions like where they're getting their food, blah, blah, blah. Where do they go to the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. How come the monsters in the next room haven't eaten them? You could do that, but you don't have to because it's made up. And since it's made up, there's no right set rules. Dungeons are wackadoodle. They don't exist. There's no real life counterpart for a Gygaxian Jaquaeus dungeon. You could have the first few levels make total logical sense. It's a dwarven mind. But then as you get deeper, the sense could become less logical and more, there's things down there. There's things down there. There's no right answer to what the basic expert said. Nobody could come up with a hard and fast, concrete, set in stone way you're supposed to do this because it's make-believe. It's a game of make-believe. There's no right way. I'm sorry that you disagree with me, Driving in Dragons, but there isn't. It's imagination. And as long as people are enjoying this story, the art, just because you don't appreciate it doesn't mean it's wrong. You could disagree with what basic experts said. It doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong. It doesn't necessarily deserve the amount of negativity he got. It's just an opinion on an art form that you don't agree with. What is the mystical dungeon? What is the fairy tale forest? What is the idea of once our protagonists leave home, the world changes them. And not everything they're going to encounter in the world has to make sense because there is a mythical, there is an unexplained. Set that in D&D world where you have magic and demons and other planes and all sorts of wackadoodle stuff. There are even more reasons I don't have to explain this, it's magic. Set that in a more modern day world, I can just go, hey, we still don't know what's in 99% of the ocean, dude, much less 99% of the Amazon. You can't tell me this isn't real. And don't even get me started on outer space. But congratulations to the basic expert. This is the first time in a long time somebody has managed to create a brand new topic for the wheel of irrelevant concepts that we will now argue about for the next several years, because I think you're playing my game wrong and you think I'm playing your game wrong. And the idea of, oh, well, you really can't play make-believe wrong because it's make-believe. And as long as everybody in your make-believe group is agreeing upon the rules of your make-believe, it's not wrong, because you're all having fun. I think you all need to remember that it's a stupid game about goblins with sticks. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Congratulations again for creating a brand new meme, Basic Expert, and I will talk to you all later.